What's up, everybody? What is today? Today is May 25th, 2023. It is a Thursday. It is the Ask Me Anything. And we're going to go ahead and kick it off because there's a fair amount of questions that I'm going to try my very best to absolutely get through, but there's a decent amount. So we'll see how this goes. But before we kick it off, there was a screenshot I took from something in the private Facebook group a while ago, and I had it in my phone saved under photos, and I just keep forgetting to bring it up. I think it was from a couple weeks ago, so I finally remembered today. And it's just, I got to give a shout out. You know, there's so many awesome people in the community that I could give shout outs all day long and still miss people, but there are some, there's a wonderful woman across the pond who posts under the handle of CW CrossFit. And she is just, never met her, but just one of the shining lights in the community. And I just screenshotted a post she made a few weeks ago about she's working on her bar muscle-ups. Before she even got there, she gave shout-outs to Melanie H., to Patrick S., a different Patrick S., Samantha W., and all these people that passed through her head when she didn't want to work out but gave her strength and motivation. Super cool. I mean, that's the power of the community. And also, she gives us a lot of strength and motivation. And congrats to you, because she posts here that over the course of a couple weeks, she went from getting two bar muscle-ups using a box to now she's got 5 singles unassisted over the course of a session. So keep it up. Very cool. Okay, let's dive right in. There's a lot to cover today. Oh, I also have to mention, because, it's just fun. I think I told people, I see somebody said that, CW CrossFit is goals. Absolutely. I mean, now I'll embarrass her some more. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think she's in her early 50s, I want to say. But if you saw her, I believe you would assume that she was in her early 30s. Like, she's crushing it. She's doing fantastic. I made mention of this a while ago. So I somehow realized that CrossFit Linchpin has a Twitter account that I hadn't used since 2016. And it just dawned on me that I had it. And so I kind of blew the dust off of that. So, whether you follow it on CrossFitLinchpin.com, you're on Facebook, you're on Instagram, but now I'm going to start posting the daily workouts and stuff on Twitter. And that's at CF Linchpin. And I'm also going to use Twitter to have a little bit of fun, right? We're supposed to be able to have fun, right? So it's just little comments every now and then. So, for example, yesterday was 3 by 800 meter runs, and I just thought it was quite humorous. So, people like to avoid running. So I wrote on Twitter that avoiding running breeds cowardice. And, it's just humor. So if you want to have a little humor, I'll be there, and we'll see who has a sense of humor and who doesn't. So that'll be fun. Okay, let's dive right in. The first one is from the BTWB Squads feature for Linchpin, and this is from Jenny B. Okay, Jenny, here we go. She says, I'm a coach at an affiliate, and my values are more in line with the CrossFit methodology, classic CrossFit, if you will. The box I coach at follows the new trend of short warm-ups, doing a strength session, then doing a Metcon, and then if we have enough time, maybe a stretch session, which rarely happens. I'm not a fan of the programming because I'm constantly watching the clock, and I feel that I have to rush things. Unfortunately, I'm the odd number out. I feel torn, as I want to do the workouts along with my members, and I know that people look up to the coaches. I also don't want to reflect my negative views on the programming. I hate when a member asks me, hey, are you going to do this today? One of the many reasons I came on board with Linchpin is hoping to bring this programming forward to my affiliate. Linchpin is amazing, but I feel guilty not doing what's programmed at my affiliate. How do you suggest I continue with this battle, etc., etc.? That is a situation. So, first of all, the simple answer is, and may not be popular, but the goal is always to tell the truth here to everybody. The truth will set you free. The truth will set you free. So, I would feel really bad lying to the members, especially if you think what they're doing is not really optimum for them. I know that puts you in a terrible position, but I don't feel like you should have to lie to people. I think that's just No one's going to sleep well at night because of that. You know, it's a really big fitness world out there. You know, if you're just a CrossFitter, you think the whole world's CrossFit. CrossFit's just a drop in the bucket, quite frankly. I mean, whether it's powerlifting, bodybuilding, Olympic lifting, the running community, triathlon, cycling, or CrossFit, it's a really big fitness world out there. And if you're trying to do CrossFit, you know, here's an interesting story. If you go back and read the old CrossFit Journal articles, you're going to read about the garage gym because that's how it was intended, quite frankly. It was how you didn't have to go to this big commercial gym with all these selectorized machines and the mirrors and all that with a very small amount of gear and some knowledge between your ears, you could turn your garage gym into a world-class training facility and exceed what you were going to get going to that global gym as well. But it would take that individual to take some ownership in their fitness, want to improve their strength and conditioning knowledge, be intelligent and resourceful, and you get amazingly fit. Amazingly fit. Now, we've got the traditional CrossFit affiliate, right? Open 6 or 7 days a week, lots of classes every day, and people are coming in. Now, don't get me wrong. The current affiliate model is worlds better than just sitting on a selectorized machine. And it's worlds better than sitting on your couch. But there are some difficulties with the current affiliate model. And it's understandable as to why, right? You've got some poor owner or group of coaches that are like, well, what are we going to do, you know, with regards to our programming and whatnot? Because let's take Bob as a member. Well, what if Bob only comes in Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and this week we had strength programmed on Tuesday and maybe on Saturday? Bob never got in a lifting day. Oh my goodness. Well, then if next week Bob's schedule changes and Bob comes in Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and our heavy lifting days were Monday and Friday. Well, Bob's now gone 2 weeks without lifting heavy. Oh my goodness, what can we do? Or play this game with, well, I doubt anyone plays this game with running or sprinting, right? Nobody seems to care if anybody misses a running or a sprinting day. It's always the heavy stuff. So what are we going to do? Well, let's do everything every single solitary day. And then no matter what day anyone comes in, they got exposed to the heavy barbell and they get exposed to something else. Like on the surface, I can see why that potentially they think that solves a problem. But then you also have, maybe that works out well for Bob that came in 2 or 3 times a week. But what about the other member that came in 5 times a week? Now they've been under a heavy barbell 5 times a week. So the truth is, like, that rushed warm-up, fit in a strength session, fit in a rushed Metcon, maybe have time to cool down, maybe not. Go from A, B, C, and D. And, you know, and Jenny in her own words says that she feels rushed, like she's always looking at the clock. That right there tells you all you need to know. That's not good. Doing exactly what's being described here, the rushed warm-up, try to fit in a lift session, try to fit in a Metcon, try to get in a cool down, that's a great way to excel at absolutely nothing. It's a fantastic way to be great at nothing. You're not going to develop great strength, you're not going to develop great fitness, you're not going to develop great metabolic conditioning. It's not going to happen. It's too much for most people. They're going to be overtrained, broken, and it's just not going to go well. And they're not ever going to be able to bring any sort of meaningful intensity to anything for any period of time because of the volume that you're throwing at them. It's a simple math equation. It's not my opinion. Like, I feel pretty confident saying this is a fact. If you have a lot of volume, you're not going to have a lot of intensity. If you have a lot of intensity, you're not going to have a lot of volume. Like, those two, you can't have both. And so you're going to be just wonderfully mediocre is probably what's going to happen here. And then I wouldn't be surprised because we get people that have been suffering under this sort of programming come to Linchpin all the time after finally, whether it takes a month, a year, or 2 years, they start to develop that pain in their knee, their back, their shoulders. They're burnt out emotionally. They wonder why they hate CrossFit anymore. They wonder why they've plateaued. We know why they've plateaued because we talk about this stuff all the time, so it's not mysterious. So the only thing in the world that I care about is putting out the best strength and conditioning on the face of the earth from a minimalist perspective, okay? From a minimalist perspective. So I'm going to give you the minimum dose that gives you astonishing levels of fitness and doesn't overtrain you. That's all I care about, quite frankly. And if I thought something else worked better, well, that's what I would do. The reason that we don't do the lift heavy every day and do the Metcon, I could program that if I want to. It doesn't work the best. It's really just that simple. And so that's a terrible position to be in, that you have to watch people do this ineffective, unintelligent training and then just keep your mouth shut. That's a terrible position to be in, and I don't envy you. And like I said, it's a stress to live under. So I think the truth will set you free. I think you should tell the truth. And that may not be easy, but the truth rarely is. And the other part of it is, in your own words, feel rushed, always looking at the clock. That's terrible. Because your job as a coach or a trainer is not to just shuffle people along and manage the clock to make sure that we don't run into the next class that's starting on the top of the hour. That shouldn't be your job. Yes, it's part of your job, but it shouldn't be your primary occupation and worry because there's so much nonsense packed into the schedule. Your primary job as a coach or a trainer is to make people better, to improve human movement through coaching. And if you're going to do that, it requires precisely what the sort of programming that Jenny described does not give her. Time. You need time to get in there, to get your hands dirty, and to work with people. And if it's rush from this, rush to that, you're just running a cattle farm. So that's a tough situation to be in. And it's again, it's funny. Like I said, you're going to be wonderfully mediocre at both, and I don't know why more CrossFit coaches and owners don't understand that. Lifting heavy every day is not how you get strong. It's not how you get strong. I mean, go back and listen to very not random episode 97, in which I interviewed Lawrence Chalet, one of the world's strongest men. Okay, that's all his concern is being the strongest human being on the face of the planet. You see, when you click on ESPN, you see the strongman like carrying cars around. Like, that's him. I think he competed at the World's Strongest Man 10 years, finished in the top 5 a few times. He was also Europe's strongest man once or twice, like a legend in the strongman community, a beast. Back squatted, I think, 550 pounds for a set of 20, a strong human being. And when I interviewed him, and I mentioned that like CrossFit gyms like to lift every day, he was like, well, that doesn't make any sense at all. Why would you ever do that? If you want to get strong, you have to get in like a serious lifting session. And a serious lifting session involves intensity. And a serious lifting session involves recovery. So you're not going to do it again the next day. And he said there was even a period of time when he was trained to be the world's strongest man that he lifted 3 times a week. 3 times a week. But you've got CrossFit affiliates that will lift heavy 6 or 7 times a week and then wonder why no one's improving their strength. I'm not wondering why. It's really, really obvious. And quite frankly, that's why I started Linchpin, to get out of that nonsense. There's some nonsense out there. So, okay, here we go. Next most upvoted question was from Dana J. Dana J says, I know your thoughts are embedded in CrossFit for life with healthy shoulders, backs, and knees. I know you also do your share of broadcasting for different competitions. What's your thought on the youth and competitive CrossFit? Are we starting to see an emergence of youth coming through the competitive ranks? Some may be struggling with mental effects. I'm feeling as though CrossFit and gymnastics are running a close parallel with burnout. So CrossFit and the sport gymnastics. So CrossFit as a competition, gymnastics as the sport, and then kids getting in there. Yes, and also getting back to very not random, Adrian and I did a great interview with Haley Adams. I can't remember what the episode was, but it was her talking about exactly this, like mental burnout, and she's been doing CrossFit since she was a young girl, and so she started like that. And whether it's CrossFit or gymnastics, or heck, even like our two boys are involved in basketball. They both play for like their local teams, and they play for an AAU team. And they love basketball, but it's a lot. Kids sports these days, I don't want to like suddenly turn into the old man here, but I don't know. I think things have changed. Kids sports these days are now like you can buy a franchise for your local sports, like I9 Sports or this soccer program or whatever, and they're enterprises. And so the longer that the season goes, the more opportunity they have to collect fees from parents. The more tournaments that they go to, the more fees they're going to be. Like, they're a business, for better or for worse. There's also the wonderful things that come with sports involved in there as well. But I just remember, back when I was growing up, I don't know if you played Little League. Oh, you played Little League, and you might have got a T-shirt that was like sponsored from the local Frankie's Pizza or what it was, and then you just played some ball, and like that was it. I'm sure some people took it seriously and some didn't, but it wasn't like this massive enterprise and organization of like roaming around the United States of America or whatever country and doing these tournaments and collecting these fees. It was different. And kids these days, they're under a lot of pressure. I 100%, I see somebody saying, yeah, there's definitely been a change in the last 10 to 15 years. I mean, I see it even like with our two boys. I mean, they have basketball like every weekend, and not just one game. Like, these tournaments and organizations will schedule over the course of a 2-day weekend. Each kid might have 2 games a day or 3 games a day. So there could be each kid's playing 4 to 6 basketball games every single solitary weekend. That's great, you love basketball, but then they're in school, they get home from school, they got some homework to do, and then they have basketball practice or football practice or baseball practice during the week. So you're not getting to play and be a kid during the week because you get schooled and homework and then practice, because all these different organizations take it so serious and we got to win this year, and so practice. And then you fill your weekends with these tournaments that are far away. You don't really get to like just play in a non-sport and be a kid there as well. I mean, I think the burnout, if it's not already here, it's happening soon. And I'm not quite sure but we have this conversation all the time with our kids because, Emily, when I've had her on the AMA before, she's been open and honest about getting burned out in gymnastics and needing a break from that when she was growing up. And so she's pretty tuned into that. And so we're always telling our kids, like, how are you feeling? Are you still having fun? Like, I don't care if you play basketball or not. I really don't. Like, if you're having fun and you enjoy the pace and you know that you don't get to do some other things, awesome, cool, keep doing it. If it's not fun, let's take a break, buddy. Let's stop. Like, it ain't that important. It's just basketball or baseball or whatever it is. Like, getting burned out's not good. So, yeah. I mean, like this weekend, for example, which is Memorial Day weekend. So kids get the day off from school on Monday. Yeah, I guess they do. But guess what? The local basketball organizations just decide to schedule more games on that day, so it's not a day off for the family. It's not a day off for the kids. We'll be running around again. So this weekend the kids will have basketball on Saturday, basketball on Sunday, and then, oh, congratulations, you get a day off from school. They schedule basketball tournaments again on Monday. So now instead of going through 2 days of basketball and blowing your whole weekend, we're going to go through 3 days of basketball and blow our whole weekend. And don't get me wrong, I want my kids to be in sports and get the benefit that comes from being in a competitive environment and the discipline that's needed and the camaraderie and the teamwork and all that. But my goodness, like, is there a happy medium somewhere where you can actually give some families some time off as well? So is that happening in CrossFit? I'm sure it's happening in every sport that kids are getting in. And so yeah, I would keep a close eye on your kids for sure. Okay. Next most upvoted question from Bruno C. This was posted in the private Facebook group. What's the most encouraging CrossFit story you've ever heard or witnessed? Easy. Back when I was with CrossFit doing seminars all the time, I did a lot of seminars in New York. Miserable place to travel to with traffic in airports and all that, side story. But regularly we would go to a gym owned by David Osario, CrossFit South Brooklyn. And if you're in that area, highly recommend you pop in. Fantastic human being, great gym, they do things right. And we do these level 1 seminars at CrossFit South Brooklyn. I bet I did a half dozen there at least. And there was one gentleman who was always in the audience. He was a member of CrossFit South Brooklyn, lived in the local area, and I don't know, there used to be this thing, and I don't know if it's changed anymore, but like back in the day, if you went to a level 1 seminar and it was like $1,000 or whatever it was, if you then wanted to go back, I think the second time it was like $500. And then if you want to go back again, I think it got knocked down to like $250 or maybe even less, but it kept going down. So this guy, Jacinto Bonilla, fantastic human being, was this gentleman, New Yorker, who was 70 years old or in his early 70s, okay? Not a spring chicken. He was in the audience in at least 4 of these seminars. He just kept coming back, and I asked him why one day, and he's like, He's like, you know, at this point in time, it's only a couple $100. He's like, I could blow that on a weekend anyway, doing something stupid or out drinking or whatever people do. He's like, I can sit here and, you know, have a conversation with you and get some more knowledge I didn't last time and learn a little something and hang out with some good people. Like, really, really cool dude. But here's why he was so inspirational. Not only was he just awesome and that engaged in his fitness and living a healthy life, but at 70 years old, or maybe just, you know, a hair above 70, we used to do Fran on day 1 of the level 1 seminar. 21:59 thrusters and pull-ups, 95 pounds, 65 pounds. Of course, you know, scaling was available. Listen when I say this. Mr. Bonilla, Jacinto Bonilla, the time cap for Fran was 10 minutes. And so if you didn't think you could do it in 10 minutes or less, we would recommend scaling in one way, shape, or form. I witnessed this gentleman on more than one occasion at his age perform Fran as prescribed. 95 pounds on the barbell, kipping chin over bar pull-ups, no band, no jumping pull-ups, no nothing. Do Fran as prescribed within the 10-minute time cap. Now, he might have just come in at 9:40, okay? He wasn't putting in a 3-minute, 4-minute, 5-minute, or 6-minute Fran. But he did Fran in his early 70s, prescribed within the 10-minute time cap. And I saw him do it more than once with my own eyes. Dude is a beast. And just, he wasn't doing anything special. Well, maybe he was doing something special compared to what most people do. He was paying attention to what he ate. He made sure he got good sleep. He didn't live a unhealthy lifestyle. He did functional movements. He scaled or modified things as needed, didn't let his ego get in the way. He made very smart decisions, and he was a fire-breathing monster at about 70 years old. A fire-breathing monster and the nicest guy that you want to meet. No fancy gear, no fancy wearables, no fancy whatever. Clean living, hard work. Fantastic. Dude was absolutely fantastic and just had an open mind and a thirst for knowledge. So, really good dude. Okay, good question. Next most upvoted question is from Bob S. This is from the BTWB Squads feature. Okay. Thanks for all you do, Bob. My pleasure. And let's see. Okay, so here's my question. And I think you can relate because of your shoulder issues. And anyone who doesn't know, I have terrible shoulders. Not CrossFit's fault. Military accidents, motorcycle wrecks. Terrible, terrible, terrible shoulders that no amount of bands or lacrosse balls is going to improve. It's just I got some stuff going on. Okay, Bob says, when overhead squats are programmed and you're 62 years old and you're a 62 years old masters athlete and your shoulder mobility is not great and you stopped going upside down, such as doing handstand push-ups a couple years ago, is it better to do the lightweight overhead squats that you can? My current 1 rep max is about 105. Or do you do the wild card option and do a heavier front squat? My answer is to always do the light overhead squats and to try to hold on to what I have. Extremely humbling movement, etc., etc. Be interested in your thoughts. Mr. Glassman always said that the overhead squat tells an honest story. Thanks in advance. So, yes, good question. And yes, Mr. Glassman did say that the overhead squat tells an honest story. However, that's not the whole story. The other part of the story would also be, yes, the overhead squat might be illustrative of a point of tightness, a point of restriction, some mobility issues that an athlete has going on. It does tell an honest story there. But that doesn't mean that if you have something going on with your body from age, from injury, from whatever it happens to be, that the overhead squat, honest as it may be, actually causes, there's a difference between discomfort and pain. Is the overhead squat just uncomfortable yet challenging? That's okay. Does the position of the overhead squat actually force you into something which is painful and not good because of something you've done to your body? If that's the case, don't overhead squat. Period, end of story. Don't do something which feels bad and is injurious. Challenge and uncomfortable, different story. And so to answer your question, and I think what Bob's talking about is, I believe it was on Tuesday, we had that heavy day at a high heart rate. Overhead squats went 10, 8, 6, 4, 2, each at a different percentage. I think it was 50% of your overhead squat for 10 reps, 60% for 8, 70% for 6, 80% for 4, 90% for 2. And after each set of overhead squats, you burned it down on a 250 meter row. Then you would rest 3 minutes. So you did the 10, burn it on the row, rest 3 minutes. Do the 8, 250 meter row, hard as you can, rest 3 minutes. You played that game. So that was a heavy day at a high heart rate. So that's what he's talking about here. Question being, do you do that workout with the lighter weight because of what you have going on with the overhead squat, or do you do the wild card option that day, which was front squats? So you took the overhead position out of it. I'm 100% with you there, Bob. So I knew that for my shoulders, I would not be able to get an appreciable load overhead with the overhead squat. And so, yeah, I'd overhead squat that day, but it wouldn't be a heavy day at a high heart rate. So what I would recommend you, me, or somebody else in this position does, again, as long as it's uncomfortable and challenging and not painful and injurious, those are two different things. Do some light overhead squat work, just for practice, for technique, for positioning, to keep that movement in that range of motion for as long as you can. I just did some stuff with an empty barbell that day for the overhead squat because anything more than that didn't feel smart and good. And then when I went to do the workout, knowing that I wouldn't be able to get an appreciable loading for the overhead squat, I did the wild card option. I did the front squats, and it was a heavy day at a high heart rate, and life was good. So that would be my recommendation there. Okay, a couple questions left. This one's a great one. Not a fancy or flashy question, but a great one. This is from Eric CM. With so many influences or influencers in social media, how can we distinguish what's true in the fitness and nutrition world? Yeah. There is a whole lot of nonsense out there. The fitness industry, I mean, maybe all industries have their charlatans and fraud and quackery, but man, there's plenty of that in the fitness world. And as CrossFit, as a global business enterprise methodology, whatever you want to call it, has grown, so has a lot of the nonsense as well. I mean, you used to just be able to, like I said, answering Jenny's question at the beginning, where did this all come from? You can develop world-class fitness in your garage with some truth, some knowledge, some understanding, the constant pursuit of improving that, and a very minimal amount of gear and some dedication. You'll be a beast. And now, you need all kinds of stuff to work out. No, you don't. And you could actually just make choices at the grocery store and be totally good to go. Now, you might take some other supplementation that maybe does or doesn't benefit you in some way, but what you really need is just great choices that you make at the grocery store. That's going to be the overwhelming foundation, and as to whether or not you go in one direction or another. That's what's going to really drive the needle. And same thing with what you're doing in the garage. Are you doing some nonsense, like Jenny described earlier? Are you doing what actually works? And so, there's a lot of chase the money happening in strength and conditioning, in fitness, and in CrossFit. Yeah, and those lines are getting blurred. And I'm here to tell you, take it for what it's worth. I mean, I think this is like Linchpin Conversations number 360 something. There's been a lot of them. Go back and listen to them all. I feel really confident saying that we are, and it's my goal to be where people can come for the truth. I will shoot you straight. You have my 100% vow on that. I will shoot you straight as to what works, what doesn't work. This is my entire all-encompassing passion. I talk to people, interview people, connect with people that I agree and disagree with all the time. And we're going to keep an open mind, and I will shoot you straight, whether you want to hear it or not. You know, I'm not going to wrap you up in a warm, comfortable lie. I'm going to tell you the truth. And the truth is usually much simpler than most people want to believe. And Linchpin will be the place. So come on here, and I'll do all the screening for you. How about that? And we'll get through the nonsense together. That's one of the greatest things about this community is we have a group of people that have decided to actually do what works and cut the nonsense out. So that's that. Let's see. Somebody says, I love Linchpin programming. I can follow even when traveling. Good, excellent. Yes, that's the point here. And as far as, you know, I'm certainly not trying to impress anybody, right? There's no flashy media coming out of Linchpin. There's none of that. It's just like the Blair Witch Project. I'm going to click on the camera. We're going to have an honest conversation. I'm going to shut the camera off. It's going to appeal to a certain group of people that want to hear the truth and be with like-minded people, and it won't appeal to somebody else. That's okay. We're going to be right here, staying true to what works, and we'll keep moving forward. And as far as the nutritional aspect goes, I give my strongest recommendation to E.C. Sinkowski and Optimize Me Nutrition. I don't get a dime for saying that. There's no financial incentive for me to say that. I don't get a revenue share. I get nothing. But man, there's so much dumb stuff out there with nutrition. So much dumb stuff. And EC has what I consider a very Linchpin-esque mindset for nutrition. She's not overly concerned about your feelings. She reads the studies that people don't actually read and figures out what works and what doesn't work and just presents you her best interpretation of where the unfiltered, unbiased data led her. Not where the sponsorships led her, not where the media led her, not where the social media influence led her, where the truth led her. And like so many other things, it's a lot easier than most other people would have you believe. With no clickbait, just like Linchpin, no clickbait titles, there's no thumbnails that are meant to drag you in, like there's just the truth. And so that's where I recommend there as well. Okay, final most upvoted question is from Andy L. This was in the Facebook group. And Andy says, with summer upon us and the kids out of school, my boys, 9 and 12, have shown some interest in working out with me. That's cool. They both play sports and could benefit from it. How would you approach youth participating in the daily workouts? Great job. I have 2 boys, 11 and 13. They have no interest in working out with me or their mom at all. I don't push it on them because I know that will make it something that they don't enjoy. They'll feel forced, but I just hope with all my heart that one day on their own they express this desire. So Andy, I'm jealous that your boys are expressing some interest. What I would recommend that you do is listen to somebody far more intelligent than me. Like I said, I'll tell you the truth, right? If something's not my wheelhouse, I'm not going to lie to you. I would recommend you talk. Oh, sorry. Okay, well, get ahead of myself. Andy, what you should do, go listen to Varied Not Random, episode number 77. It's entitled How to Train Kids. And Todd Whitman is on that episode, and he is a genius when it comes to what you should and shouldn't do with training kids. So again, Varied Not Random, episode 77. And that was just the one additional thing I wanted to say on Eric CM's question about how do you actually know where to find the truth. We're going to keep it real at Linchpin. EC keeps it real with Optimize Me Nutrition. And then I'm very proud of what Adrian Bosman and I have done with the Varied Not Random podcast. So I'd recommend you check that out as well. We got about over 100 episodes on that. And that show is just real talk, our real thoughts on things, and if something's cool, it's cool, and if it's nonsense, we think it's nonsense, and that's that. So those would be, I'm sure there are other places you can go to find the truth, but those would be good recommendations that I would give to everybody, because there is a lot of noise out there. Strength and conditioning is not that hard. It's really not. People are challenging, and what I mean by that is getting people to realize that what works is a lot simpler than they think that it is. And for example, getting back to Jenny's thing about pack all this nonsense into the class, it's easy to think that more is better. It's easy to think that lifting every day is probably going to get me strong. You have to be able to see the matrix, and you have to get a lot of knowledge into your head before you can actually start to see the matrix. And once you see the matrix, you realize eating well is actually a lot better, a lot easier than you thought. Getting in phenomenal shape is a lot easier than you thought. Now, don't get me wrong. Well, I should say it's a lot simpler. How about that? Eating well is simpler than most people realize. Getting in phenomenal shape is simpler than most people realize. But many things that are simple are not easy. And they are, quote unquote, more difficult than they should be, because people can be challenging creatures. They get inside their own heads. They struggle with compliance. They want to make something more difficult or more scientific than it needs to be, and it's just a distraction to get you to swipe your Visa card. So avoid the distractions. All right, so we'll be here supporting each other. Thanks to everybody out there for being absolutely awesome. Enjoy your rest day, and we'll talk later.